Ethan and I are sitting here in Houston, Texas at Street Food Guru off of 45. Say hi, Ethan. And we're just enjoying our mother-son time, as you can see. See, I'm doing this video simply because the Lord has spoke to my heart in saying that there's a heart condition that's going on, and I've been praying for everybody that's on my Facebook, Snapchat, all my social medias, workplace, you name it. If I meet you on the streets, I've been praying for you. It's a heart condition that we're praying for because we're about to leave the wilderness of hurt, pain, and everything that we've picked up over the past couple of years through the COVID and prior to any mental conditions, all of that. We're about to leave the wilderness and we're about to set foot into the promised land. And in the promised land, we had to go through this entire wilderness to be purified, so that we can enjoy the promise that the Lord has set forth for us. Come on, let's go deeper into this Bible study. On where you fall, okay? Whether you give in to the defeat of, I'm nothingness or whatever, or knowing that God has something for you after this wilderness, it's all contingent upon you. See, in the word in Deuteronomy, where we go and we see the passageway between Egypt, Moses was leading the Israelites from Egypt to the promised land. There was a whole generation that had to die off. There's a generation of people that only knew about the work that they did by their hands. They never really relied on God to deliver them. They got conditioned to their certain circumstances and it was hard to break. But in the middle of the wilderness, there was a nation of people that were born, that only lived and knew the workings of God's miracles. Let that sink in for a second. These were children that was born in the wilderness, and they only knew their survival. The only food that they ever knew was manna. Even right now, you can look at it, and we're in a season of people that don't believe in going to work, that don't believe in working, because they believe in a higher source and a higher power. They come here knowing that knowledge to begin with. And us as a current society, the ones that's the 40 years of wilderness that don't understand this new age, we either adapt or we just die in the wilderness that we've created for ourselves. Chew on it. I'm not going to read all of this, but I encourage each and every single one of you to go and read this today. We're coming from Deuteronomy Chapter 8, verses 11 through 20. Maybe it's just me, but I love the way that my Bible says it, in chapter 11 through 20. But let's start. Be careful that you don't forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commands, ordinances, statutes that I have given you today. Don't forget them. Don't forget who you was on the block playing street ball with. Don't forget. Don't get high and mighty and act like you didn't know who the source of it was that kept you safe throughout that wilderness situation. Don't forget. He also goes to say, look, I know you're going to get all shining and profiling. You're going to have these big houses. You're going to have this money. You're going to be eating good. You're going to have the friends. You're going to have flocks. You just going to have all your money just right. Look, don't get big-headed. Don't forget. Be careful that your heart doesn't become proud and you forget the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Don't forget that you was once a slave. Don't forget that you just came from a place of slavery and you went through the wilderness to purify yourselves through that slavery. So your mental condition where you were wouldn't be the same in the promised land. Somebody help me. Going through the wilderness, eating the manna was to test you, to make you humble, to make sure that you would stay humble in the promised land. This was to groom you for the better, for your next season. And he comes back to the end. He says, look, don't be thinking that you have the power yourself. It wasn't you. All that glory is mine. Don't get too ahead of yourself thinking that you had the power to get yourself up out of it. No. When he met you out there in the wilderness, you was just lost. You ain't know no better. You knew what you was conditioned to know. Now you have to shift your thinking into being able to receive. Be open to receive a new way of life, a different way of thinking about things. And then he closes it off and he put his mama foot down. Now, look, let me tell you something. You go out here in these streets and you embarrass me. All right. If you ever forget the Lord your God and follow other gods and serve them and bow and worship them, I testify. That's like him saying, I put that on something. Like I'm not playing with you. I kid you not. Try me if you want to. I testify against you today that you will perish like the nations that the Lord is about to destroy before you. You will perish if you do not obey the Lord your God. He's not playing. So what do we know? As we're coming out of our wilderness season, we need to be careful to do the following. When we eat, put God first. Say your grace. Give him thanks. Give him the glory. When we have an increase in our money, hey, give him that first 10. Put him first. The first 10. Do you hear me? The first 10 or more. When we have an increase in our material possessions, including our houses that we're building, put him first in that as well. In all things that we do, we put God first and give him the glory. Because especially if he's delivering you from this season of manna, and you know what lack if you have been experiencing, especially if you haven't been complaining, but you've been worshiping, you already know the great deliverance that you're about to walk into. Come on now. So what are the 4 don'ts that the Lord wants us to keep in mind as we're walking into the paradise season from the wilderness? The first don't is don't let pride get to you. Pride can seep in with swiftness, okay? And what you don't think is prideful is the very thing that is prideful. So do a self-check. Ask the Lord to come into your heart daily to self-check that bad boy to see if your pride is seeped in. The other thing is, don't forget that the Lord was walking with you through the wilderness season. He brought you out of slavery. He brought you out of bondage. He brought you out of the hard times where you had to work over and over and over again just to get the little bit that you got. Don't forget who delivered you. Also in that wilderness, don't forget who fed you. Don't forget the man fed you through the entire wilderness season, that you still had clothes on your back and a roof over your head. And lastly, don't think you had anything to do with this blessing. God gets all the glory. It had nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. He ends the passage with a warning. He ain't playing with y'all people in these streets. I'm going to tell you what that warning was. He was just like a parent, just any parent. Let me tell you something. You go out here in these streets, act like you want to forget me. Act like you don't want to abide by my commands and statutes. Act like you don't want to do what I done told you to do. You will perish. You know what the definition of perish is? I'm glad you asked. We just go ahead and do a basic Google search. Just a simple Google search. Perish means to suffer death, typically in a violent, sudden, and untimely way. That's the first definition. The second definition, which is a little bit softer for some of y'all, that's cruel slang. You need to watch your mouth. The second definition is suffer completely ruins and destruction. Google it. We say all that to just simply say, don't forget. Don't forget who held you up. Don't forget the partners in the back. Don't forget the Lord up above. The man that was walking you through this hard season that you were in. Because you experienced just a fraction of what it could have been. You have favor over your life. You are blessed. You are anointed. You are a child of the Most High. Know your identity. Know who you are. Give God the glory each and every day.